In our headlines on this Friday afternoon, September 8th. President Yoon Suk-yeol and his Indonesian counterpart Joko Widodo sit down for a summit in Jakarta early Friday to address issues of bilateral interest ranging from the economy to security. Meanwhile, North Korea declares it has launched a nuclear attack submarine after years of development, a move that Kim Jong-un says will boost plans to build a nuclear-armed navy to counter the US and its allies. Back in South Korea, the country logs a current account surplus for the third month in a row in July as imports into the country plunged further than the fall in exports from the country. President Yoon Suk-yeol and his Indonesian counterpart Joko Widodo have agreed to bolster their strategic partnership by boosting economic and security collaboration. During a summit on this Friday in Jakarta on the margins of the ASEAN-related meetings, the two leaders sealed a deal on the establishment of an electric vehicle ecosystem in Indonesia. They also penned an accord on halal food products to serve as a basis for related exports from Korea. On security, according to Seoul's top office, the two leaders agreed to push through with the $6.7 billion project launched in the year 2015 to build an advanced supersonic fighter jet together. This latest summit between Seoul and Jakarta comes amid the anniversary of their 5-decade-old diplomatic relationship this year. Also, in Jakarta, back on Thursday, President Yoon Suk-yeol took part in a business forum where he sought to shed light on the broader merits of active economic partnership between South Korea and Indonesia, with priority on energy resilience. Our An Sung-jin has details.
South Korea and Indonesia are strengthening economic cooperation for the development of future industries. During Thursday's business roundtable with Indonesia, President Yoon Suk-yeol emphasized the high potential for cooperation between the two countries and called for active cooperation. In particular, with both countries striving for carbon neutrality, he expressed hopes for stronger economic ties in the field of nuclear power plants to secure a stable energy supply infrastructure while addressing climate and environmental issues. During the meeting, where around 40 representatives from both countries' economic organizations and businesses attended, the two sides struck 16 deals in 7 different sectors, including nuclear power plants, mobility, and key minerals. The nuclear power plant MOU includes cooperation of information exchange on various nuclear reactors, including small modular reactors, and cooperation on nurturing workforces. Both countries also decided to work closely in mobility operations and establish a production base for electric motorcycles in Indonesia. The country is emerging as an economic partner in terms of supply chains, especially when it comes to key materials for batteries. To create a supply chain for that, they also agreed to cooperate in building a research center for technology development. According to a press release from Seoul's presidential office, the government plans active support for the MOU and aims for tangible results to be seen early. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And beyond trade, the South Korean leader also shed grave light on regional security concerns as he addressed his counterparts at the East Asia Summit, also on Thursday in Jakarta. Our senior presidential correspondent Oh Soo-young files this report.
President Yoon Suk-yeol has called for global solidarity amid mounting threats to regional and human security by subversive forces amid geopolitical tensions surrounding North Korea, Russia, and in the South China Sea. Speaking at the East Asia Summit in Jakarta on Thursday, attended by some 18 regional countries, including the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the US, Japan, China, and Russia, Yoon laid out Seoul's position on regional and global crises. On North Korea's nuclear and missile development, the South Korean leader said North Korea's weapons program not only violates United Nations resolutions, but poses an existential and direct threat to all countries attending the summit. He raised the need to block Pyongyang's illicit fundraising activities, which include cryptocurrency theft and illegal transshipment.
North Korea's development of weapons of mass destruction and lethal weapons ultimately equates to human rights issues in that it exploits the labor and human rights of North Korean citizens, fails to properly distribute food and economic assets, and focuses all of its assets and energy on nuclear weapons and missiles.
On that note, Yoon said member states of the Security Council have an even heavier duty of implementing UN sanctions on the regime, amid speculation that Russia and North Korea may strike up an arms deal. Also, Yoon touched on maritime tensions in the region, saying attempts to unilaterally change the status quo by force are unacceptable. He emphasized the need to establish a rules-based maritime order in the South China Sea, a key sea route, where 21% of global trade and a third of crude supplies pass through. Seoul plans to expand maritime security cooperation with the ASEAN and protect freedom of navigation. The South Korean leader further raised concerns about the ongoing war in Ukraine, calling Russia's invasion a clear violation of international law. He also expressed concern over the ongoing violence in Myanmar and voiced support for ASEAN's efforts to resolve the crisis through inclusive dialogue. Yoon's remarks reflect Seoul's firmer stance on geopolitical issues compared to previous administrations' more trade-oriented diplomacy. The top office says Seoul's growing push for freedom, peace and prosperity, shown in Yoon's multilateral diplomacy, is rooted in the spirit of Camp David, which South Korea, the US and Japan jointly declared last month in their Trilateral summit.
In their united approach to engaging with Indo-Pacific countries, particularly in the areas of advanced technology, cyber and maritime defense and development assistance, President Yoon aims to create new norms and build cooperation to uphold a liberal, rules-based order in the region and the world. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Jakarta.
And President Yoon hopes that North Korea's nuclear weapons ambitions do not hinder South Korea's ties with neighboring China. Remarks to this end were relayed in person to Chinese Premier Li Qiang in Jakarta following the East Asia Summit on Thursday. President Yoon also called on China to abide by its responsibilities as a permanent member of the UN Security Council and further urged for the country's support in hosting a trilateral summit with China in South Korea in the near future. Li Qiang is said to have responded favorably to President Yoon's remarks, adding that South Korea and China should seek to make their cooperation closer. Across the border, North Korea is reportedly advancing its nuclear armament of its navy. In fact, a ceremony earlier this week is said to have marked the launch of its first tactical nuclear attack submarine. Our Lee Soo-jin reports.
North Korea continues to take an aggressive nuclear stance. North Korea's state-run Rodong-Shimun reported on Friday that North Korea unveiled a new tactical nuclear attack submarine. Its launch ceremony was attended by leader Kim Jong-un. The submarine, named Hero Kim-gunok, is supposedly the North's first that is capable of nuclear attacks underwater. The report added that Kim said during the ceremony on Wednesday that the nuclear armament of the Navy can no longer be delayed, and that North Korea needs to accelerate efforts to supply the Navy with submarines loaded with tactical nuclear weapons so that it can smoothly carry out its strategic mission. This comes amid reports of North Korea and Russia moving to strengthen their partnership. According to Russia's state-owned Sputnik News, North Korean ambassador to Russia, Shin Hong-chul, said on Thursday that Russia and North Korea will strengthen their comradeship and stand in solidarity as they fight the common enemy. The remark was made during a celebration held at the North Korean embassy in Russia to mark North Korea's upcoming 75th founding anniversary. Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris said in an interview broadcast on the same day that it would be a huge mistake for North Korea to supply ammunition to Russia amid its invasion of Ukraine. She also said during the interview with CBS News held on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Indonesia that she believes that such moves will only further isolate both Russia and North Korea. The comments reiterate the Biden administration's firm stance against North Korea supplying Russia with weapons, as it comes just days after White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that North Korea will pay a price if it moves forward with an arms deal. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, top defense officials of South Korea, the US and Japan held talks over the phone on Thursday as part of follow-up efforts to the agreements reached during trilateral talks in Camp David. The defense minister, Lee Jong-sop, and his US and Japanese counterparts, Lloyd Austin and Yasukazu Hamada, have agreed to advance the setup of a real-time data sharing system on North Korea's missile activities. They also agreed to bolster response capabilities to such missile provocations by promptly launching trilateral military drills. Korea's current account remained in positive territory for the third month in a row in July as imports tumbled lower than exports. Our Park Ko-nu has the latest.
South Korea's current account was in the black in July for the third consecutive month. According to preliminary data from the Bank of Korea on Friday, the country's current account for July saw a surplus of $3.58 billion as imports dropped deeper than exports. The current account has been in positive territory since May, although the latest figure was a slip of some $2.3 billion compared to the month before. The cumulative surplus from the beginning of the year to July amounts to some $6 billion, which is just a quarter of the figure from the same period in 2022. South Korea's goods balance saw a surplus for the fourth straight month in July, despite exports falling 14.8% on year, while imports were down 22.7% from the year before. In terms of exports, petroleum products and semiconductors both shrank on year, while autos and home appliances were the only categories that saw an increase during the same period. By region, outbound shipments saw a significant decrease in China and Southeast Asia. Imports saw an even greater drop in terms of both the volume and ratio due to fewer inbound raw material shipments on the back of lower energy prices.
We expect the decreasing trend to continue at a slower pace in August and September, and the increase in exports will be in the positive territory in the fourth quarter.
The central bank official added, Korea is moving toward economic improvement and not a slump, despite some concerns over recent import and export figures. The country's service balance saw a deficit once again in July, as the travel account decrease almost doubled on year. This was caused by a soar in overseas travel after COVID-19 measures were eased. In terms of direct investment, Korean investment in overseas markets and foreign investment in the Korean market rose, while foreign stock investment saw the highest jump since May 2022. Park Ko-nu, Arirang News.
Global oil prices fell for the first time in 10 trading days back on Thursday. U.S. West Texas Intermediate futures for October delivery lost 67 cents, closing at $86.87 after 9 days of gains following a decision by producers to extend supply cuts. Brent crude also lost ground, dropping below $90 per barrel after 7 days of ascent. Pundits are linking the latest findings to speculation about a potential decline in global oil demand. Apple shares are surrendering substantial ground amid media reports suggesting that Chinese government workers may be banned from using Apple's iPhones. Our Lee Seung-jae explains.
For the second straight day, Apple saw its stock prices sink sharply. After shedding 3.6% on Wednesday, Apple's stock price fell another 2.9% on Thursday. The 2 days of losses have led to Apple losing almost $190 billion in value. Several reports, including the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg News, say that China plans to expand the ban on the use of iPhones at government offices and state-backed entities. Beijing has been increasingly pushing for the use of domestic products, as the use of technology has become a major national security issue for both the U.S. and China. According to Reuters, citing a source familiar with the matter, workers in at least 3 ministries and government bodies were told not to use iPhones at work. And while some have banned the use of iPhones only at workplaces, other agencies may completely ban the use of iPhones, even for personal use outside of the office. The source added that there's been no deadline given on when the new rules will be implemented, and it's not immediately clear how widely the ban was being enforced. The latest restriction comes amid an ongoing trade war between Washington and Beijing, which has further developed into a technology war. China has worked on becoming self-sufficient in core technologies and has been trying to reduce technological dependence on foreign countries over the past few years. The restrictions will be a huge blow to the American tech giants, as China is one of Apple's biggest markets, with the Asian nation generating a fifth of the company's revenue. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Japan's release of its Fukushima radioactive wastewater into the Pacific Ocean is raising much concern over seafood safety here in the country. That being said, authorities are actively working to address such concern by testing samples, sharing results, and assisting fishermen. Our Moon Hye-ryun reports.
More than a decade after an earthquake and tsunami damaged the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, Japan began to release treated wastewater into the ocean on August 24th, sparking concern both home and abroad over the safety of seafood caught in these waters. Following that disaster back in 2011, South Korea's fishing industry also suffered for 2 years straight, with production falling as a result of weakened demand. To prevent this from happening again, South Korea's local governments have been setting up events all around the country over the past few weeks to promote the safety of local seafood and encourage consumption.
I'm here at one of the many events to help local fisheries sell products at a discounted price for consumers. This particular sale is supported by the local government of Gangwon-do province in the northeastern area of the country.
Booths from 6 different branches of the National Federation of Fisheries Cooperatives in the region are selling local produce like dried seaweed, scallops and octopus ahead of the national Thanksgiving holiday, Chuseok.
Our number one priority is to promote the safety of our seafood. With Chuseok coming up, we hope that people will have seafood on the table and feel reassured about its safety. We hope that things will return to normal soon, and we're focusing on minimizing the damage to our fishermen.
These discount events have been successful in selling products so far, with many stalls at this event selling out in just an hour.
I wanted to buy everything here, but it all sold out. So I only managed to buy some squid, seaweed and pollock.
People were able to buy products at a 30% discount, and merchants expressed their hope for more events like this.
I hope that regular events like this can be held to revitalize the local economy.
Local governments are also thinking of ways to directly provide financial support for fishermen.
We're currently planning on providing more direct support for fishermen, such as funding the cost of fuel for fishing boats and so on.
On top of discount events, buyers can receive coupons worth up to around 30% of the total amount they've spent at traditional fishery markets this month. This exchange coupon event is usually available during national holidays, such as Chuseok coming up at the end of the month, but will run throughout the entirety of the month this year after the government pledged nearly $30 million to make this happen. Buyers just need to show receipts from their purchases at market stalls at the coupon exchange booth to be issued their coupons. But before local governments can promote their products to consumers, they first need to verify the safety of seafood with radiation detection machines such as this. Every day, this laboratory in Gyeonggi-do district receives hundreds of seafood samples from various local markets and school catering companies before it's sold and served to consumers. These are placed in a gamma-ray spectrometer, which then detects whether the samples are radioactive or not. Results from the detector are recorded and posted on the websites of local markets and schools to ease buyers' and parents' concerns. With transparent and regular sharing of information, discount sales and direct funding for fishermen, local governments hope to lessen the impact the release of treated wastewater has on the South Korean fishing industry. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
And in other news, concerns are mounting over a resurgence in COVID-19 ahead of the winter in the Northern Hemisphere. According to the World Health Organization earlier this week, there has been a tangible rise in hospitalizations in Europe, as well as greater spread in the Middle East and Asia. The health body also believes the lack of monitoring may worsen the situation, as fewer than a quarter of the 194 WHO member states are sharing their COVID-19 tallies with the organization. Korea is currently playing host to a global smart city exhibition, and in light of this occasion, my colleague Shin Ha-young sat down with Seoul's Vice Minister for Infrastructure to learn about Korea's smart solution to ensuring critical services, including emergency response and public convenience. To take a look.
Cities around the world have been striving to develop as smart cities, with the global smart city market forecast to reach a value of $870 billion by 2026. Amid this trend, the World Smart City Expo 2023, the largest smart city event in the Asia-Pacific region, kicked off on Wednesday in Goyang, Gyeonggi-do province. Under the theme of Smarter Cities, Brighter Future, the event shares successful models of smart cities from around the world.
This year, for the first time, we held an event called the Mayor's Forum with policymakers in cities around the world. The purpose was to share experiences and solutions to issues related to the environment, transportation and the climate crisis that cities are facing.
Seoul's Vice Minister of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, Kim Ho-jin, highlighted ICT technology as South Korea's strength in smart cities.
South Korea holds a significant advantage as a leading ICT powerhouse in the development of smart cities. Within pilot cities, there are AI-based CCTV systems connected to data centers for immediate emergency response. Additionally, there is a system that remotely monitors the health of patients and senior citizens, sending data to hospitals daily.
Among a variety of successful models, he wants to introduce a demand-responsive transit bus to the mayors visiting the expo from around the world.
I'd like to introduce demand-responsive transit buses that integrate public transportation and ICT. These buses operate flexibly based on passenger demand, adjusting their routes and stops. They are being well utilized in rural and remote areas, highlighting our country's strengths.
The government has designated Sejong City and the southern port city of Busan as national pilot smart cities and is exploring various integrated services within these cities through projects. Additionally, efforts are being made to promote Korean smart cities abroad.
We've been promoting and exporting South Korea's smart cities overseas through the so-called K-City Network program. It introduces Korean-style smart city models, technologies and solutions to cities around the world. We have already provided support to countries including Vietnam and Indonesia.
He added that through this year's expo, he hopes the Korean-style smart cities to be demonstrated in many different countries. 신하영, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It's Baeknu today, already the third autumn seasonal term. Now we can surely feel that autumn is well underway with a refreshing and comfortable start to the day and wide gaps in temperatures between lows and highs. Now daytime highs are rising fast to reach the upper 20s to low 30s across much of Korea. Clear autumn skies will be a feature nationwide. A good day to spend time in the sun to increase your vitamin D levels, but UV rays are high nationwide. So if you plan to spend time more than 30 minutes, take necessary sun care when out and about. There's no heat advisory in the country. The western parts of the country are warmer again. And Seoul and Chuncheon are topping out at 31 degrees Celsius this afternoon. A similar weather pattern is in the forecast for Saturday. And if you're going out of town this weekend, prepare a light jacket. It will get more cloudy on Sunday with rain in the forecast for the south coast and Jeju. And rain on Jeju Island will continue into early next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions. Well, that is all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Report. But do stay with us for our Friday edition of Issues and Insiders coming up next.